A Song for Silas by Laurie Wick. Chapter 17. Amy, you don't have to do this. Silas spoke the words for the third time, but the girl on the ground stood mute, holding the ladder in firm determination. Silas tried one more time, but she wouldn't even look up at him. He sighed in exasperation. They had argued over breakfast. They had argued while milking, and then again as Silas climbed the ladder. Or rather, Silas had argued. Amy had just listened in stubborn silence after announcing that morning that she planned to hold the ladder while he painted. Silas started back down the ladder. Amy moved aside as he neared the bottom. He stood frowning at her, and Amy returned his look without apology. Silas was tempted to order her into the house, but he knew she wouldn't go. It would also hurt her feelings, and that was something he would not do. With this thought in mind, his words to her were kind. "Amy, I'm not going to fall." "That's right, you're not." The firmness of her statement would have been more believable if her lower lip had not trembled. Something inside of Silas melted as he witnessed her fear and vulnerability. He grabbed her into his arms and gave her a fierce hug. When he set her from him, the hands holding her upper arms were tight. "Amy, I understand your fear, but I don't believe God is going to let me fall from the ladder. Your dad and I have talked. Even if you had been out here that day, you could not have stopped his fall. In fact, from what Grant described, he would have fallen on top of you had you been standing here." Amy followed his finger as he pointed to the foot of the ladder. "Amy, you're going to have to trust God in this, even though it frightens you. If it makes you feel better to hold the ladder, that's fine, but God alone has control over this." Silas's arms dropped to his side, and Amy turned to look out over the surrounding landscape. With the way she was chewing on her lower lip, Silas was sure she wasn't seeing the land at all. Silas figured Amy must have come to some peace because she turned to Silas after a few minutes and said, "I'll be out to check on how you're coming a little later." Once in the kitchen, Amy stood and tried to calm the pounding of her heart. Silas was right. She could do nothing outside. It did feel better to hold the ladder, but Amy knew if she did that, she would be trusting in herself and not God to keep Silas safe. Almost of their own volition, Amy's feet moved toward her father's bedroom. Grant was awake and looking almost as though he had been waiting for her. The curtain moved slightly against the window, and Amy instantly knew he had been. With the window open slightly, he had heard her entire conversation with Silas. Grant patted the edge of the bed, and Amy settled herself next to him. "Silas is right," he said without preamble. "God sent him to us in our time of need, and I trust that God will take care of him. When he first asked me about finishing the painting, I was against it, but I realized this was pride. I had to face the fact that right now I can't climb that ladder and may never be able to again. Well, I wasn't about to let you finish the painting, so you can see I didn't have many options. Amy, your fear is understandable, but everything is going to be fine. God will take care of Silas." Grant stared at Amy as she studied the carpet in silence. She was a young replica of Maureen. In fact, they were so much alike he even knew what she was thinking. Her silence meant she was still pondering over the situation and praying it out. So like Maureen. Maureen. Even now a pain went through his chest. His precious Maureen. Oh, how he missed her. How proud she would have been of Amy, grown into a beautiful, godly young woman. Suddenly, almost desperately, Grant wanted Amy to know the kind of love he and Maureen had shared. What was the matter with Thomas Blaine? For him to have Amy's love and reject it was beyond comprehension. Would Amy ever give her love again? Movement at the back of the house drew his attention, but Amy didn't change positions. "Silas Cameron." A smile broke across Grant's features. For the first time, Grant was very glad Thomas had broken off with Amy. He tried to slow his mind down, but it didn't work. Silas was the perfect man for... "Dad, are you all right?" Grant started and moved to see Amy looking at him with concern. "Oh, I'm fine, honey. I was just listening to Silas bump around out there and thinking." He reached over to pat his daughter's hand, and Amy looked relieved. Amy stood. "I think I'll head out and see how he's doing." Grant's voice stopped her at the door. "Amy, if you want to talk about anything, you know I'm here." Amy saw the look of tender concern on her father's face, and wondered exactly what had brought that on. But she simply thanked him and went out.